What's up everyone, this is Gerard talking and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we'll be talking about Battle Festival Monika banner that brings Mariah, Gerard, Rouge, Hector and Monika together in a very good banner. There was actually a 2.5 anniversary banner coming from JP. We are getting this a little earlier. These styles offer a lot for new players, for old players, they all do different stuff. And we don't have off banner here, meaning that if you get a double S drop, it will be any of them. Let's talk about Mariah. We have three different versions of her. The very first one is an A limited style, then we have a platinum. The third one is this semi-strand Mariah that is a spear wielder and carries the water element. Well, for starters, she's not a damage dealer. She's a support unit with a very high love for heals. 88% plus 17 is the highest we see in the game. With charisma on 58 plus 5, it's also a very good value. All the other status are not good. We don't have damage, only 71 STR. We don't have high endurance, but at least it's good for support units with 76% and 73 will. Her agility is on 64, that's pretty low for current standards. Dexterity is 70 just for her physical attacks, and we don't use intelligence. Forget about this status. She's pretty unique because of her passives. The first one is called Tidal Blessings. When she's attacked, she has a 50% chance of healing all surviving allies by a very small effect. The very small effect should be around 150. Because her love is pretty high, it's already very good value. This is game changing. There's no other character in the game that can heal like this. And there are moments in the game where you get multiple enemies, like there are challenges where we have 8 enemies and they do AoEs. So every time that you get hit, we'll have 50% chance of healing everyone. Against bosses that just focus on single target attacks against different characters, this will not work so well. But if you have multiple enemies or an enemy that uses multiple AoEs attacks, this will be very important going forward against hard challenges. Well, we can compare Mariah to some other support units like Princess White Rose. Princess White Rose has two different units that we'll just compare. We have the Halloween one that can trigger will every time that she gets hit. That allows her to decrease magical attacks and also chance of being debuffed or inflicted with status ailments. We also have the blue version of Princess White Rose that can heal everyone. 37% chance on the end of a turn. And we can also compare this to Golden Ball that can buff endurance every time that she gets hit. Endurance only decreases physical damage. Well, we can combo these characters together just fine. But the best way to combo is to combo with Matriarch, because Matriarch can buff love and charisma with her Peon of Peace, and she can use this many times in a row. And I was using Matriarch with Blue Princess Rose, and I was getting more than 300 heal every time that she triggered the passive. So, in the future we also get another formation called Gembu that will increase love and charisma of everyone, allowing for stronger healings. So, when you get more than 300, you can see that this is very good. Right now we have around 1.7 thousand HP. That means that every single trigger will get you close to 20% HP healed. That is nice. Well, let's return here. So Mariah will open new strategies where you will be able to heal and break some of the rules in the game. If you want to heal in UniverSe, you need to spend LP with a spell, unless you are using Steel Blade Light, another skill that breaks some of the rules of the game by not using LP. So this will be super important in boss fights in the future if you care about very hard challenge. Trying to bring some characters that will work differently against very specific situations may be a joker card. Then the second passive is called Punishing Wave 1. On the end of a turn, she has a 25% chance to recover all allies VP by 1. This is nice, especially because, well, we were talking about Steel Blade Light, we can talk about Mirza as an example, and Mirza has a 10 BP attack, Steel Blade Light, that heals everyone. And if you get 1 BP back, you can just use this every 3 turns. And we were kind of using Nawal's daughter to help out with that, because she gets 1 BP to everyone with her Water Festival. Now you can just drop Nawal's daughter if she's not exactly working on your composition, and instead bring Mariah and still make Mirza and other characters that have 10 BP skills attack usually once every 3 turns, because, well, 25% chance means that once every 4 turns you will get 1 BP. But since it's for everyone and it's passive, it's an interesting thing. And you can combo with Nawal's as well if you want. Then the last passive is called Iron Wall Defense 6. This one decreases damage by 40%. That is massive. This comes from tanks, and although her endurance and we are not so high, if you are also bringing other buffers, she will receive very, very low damage, allowing her to take some hits because she needs to take hits and trigger tidal blastings. But remember, she's not a tank. She's not made for you to get a formation like Tiger Shark, place Mariah in the front so that she gets hit all the time. She will probably die even with this passive. She's more made for contents where there are enemies using multiple AoE attacks that are not as powerful, so that she can cover the HP of everyone. You have to understand the limitations of the strategy, or else you'll feel a little underwhelmed. With that said, we have to talk about the skills. We have the first one being Pure Barrier. This one gives a 50% decreasing damage by 1 turn. I see that we have this before with other characters like Witch's Daughter. We have this by Inheritance of the S style. Dancing Leaves is just the same thing but with a different element, or you can also do this with the second version of Building. But it's more about helping out some tanks that don't have damage negation, as you see here, Dancing Leaves. Like Tukwai needs this because she removes damage only 37% of the time, so sometimes she would take very high damage. And there is another one that is Princess Golden Lion. She also takes damage when she counters, so using this when she's countering may be helpful. But some other ones like Fornews don't need this, or even Urpina, she already negates damage. Now for the second spell, we have Rain of Life. Well, we got this with some other styles in the past. There is the first, Miss Surfing. The first one was not so good because she has had bad passives. She was just staying there and waiting for Rain of Life to be useful. And then we got another character that was the latest Yundin. Latest Yundin also has it, and she's actually a very powerful style. Rain of Life is very powerful because it just heals everyone else in the party. And the heal is around 1,200 with my Yundin currently. Since Mariah has a higher love, the heal will be even better. As you see here, 88%. So, if you get a turn where you got hit many times and you didn't trigger the first passive enough, you can just use Rain of Life to recover your HP to full. I'm pretty sure that Mariah can get you close to full HP even if you are on the lowest value possible. And you can use this twice in a fight, allowing you to overcome some very bad turns. Then we have Poseidon Shot Plus. This one is not made for damage. As you can see, this is an amplified skill that uses piercing cold damage with triple S, but she doesn't have any damage passive, very bad STR. But the good thing is that it will recover her HP by very large effect. This should be always enough to get her to full, even if you got hit by debuffs that debuffs Charisma, for example. So it's more for emergency situations where, let's say that you don't want to use Rain of Life since she's the only character that needs to be healed since she got hit many times against an enemy. So the strategy with Mariah is to save EP right from the start. You can even just use normal attacks to have a lot of EP stacked so that she fits different situations. Before we talk about the strategies, we can also talk about Inheritance. She has Acupuncture Plus as Inheritance by Amplify, and Acupuncture Plus is a very good attack. Not just because of damage, not just because it's triple S, but because it will always debuff the STR of a target by 30%. So let's see that we start to fight debuffing the STR, and then after that we can decide if we want to heal, debuff again. It's pretty nice. We also can inherit Water of Life that will be amplifiable in the future that recovers HP. But since she already has Ring of Life, I think that most people will just amplify Acupuncture and use it. So you start the fight, use Acupuncture, then decide if you want to use Ring of Life later, or Poseidon Shot if she gets to critical HP. Because you are more relying on the trigger of passive number 1 or passive number 2. Sometimes you can even use Poseidon Shot or Acupuncture Plus once every 3 turns if that Punishing Wave 1 trigger. Okay, so now that we talked about everything, let me tell you something. Mariah is meta against boss fights. We have many different characters that will be very useful, like Princess White Rose, like we already have used Gerard, Novel's Daughter, Golden Ball, Global X, Final Impress. Mariah is now another one that will add a new mechanic, and if you care about super hard challenge, getting a new way to solve some problems is important. She will be receiving a very high double S grade or a low triple S grade just because of this unique mechanic that, like I said, is breaks a little of the rules of the game, allowing you to heal a lot without having to use LP. And she will work pretty well with those that got the third style of Gerard. If you got her, it is even more important to get Mariah. But if you don't care much about very hard challenge, you can skip Mariah if you want. Some people just don't care about romancing fights or things like that. She's not a good farmer, she doesn't work very well for some other stages, but in attacks she will also work pretty well. Now it is time to talk about Gerard. We have 5 different styles of him in the game. The first one is Platinum, the second one was 3. This one is from Tower, and we have a Nest style too. Now, the limited style has higher status for everything when compared to the Tower one. And Gerard is a hybrid style that brings Sword and Sun attribute. We don't have high STR, we don't have such a high intelligence, but he offers an hybrid stuff like heal, damage, and support. His endurance is actually pretty bad, like all characters that bring what he offers as well. We'll be comparing them together. His will is a little higher, dexterity is very low, like characters being released months ago, and love and charisma are not so high. Well, Gerard has something very unique like Steel Blade Light, but we'll talk about this later. First of all, his passive gives him 10% increase in damage and plus 2 BP on start of a battle, allowing him to use some setups that we'll talk about later. And then the second one is called Imperial Assault that grants all surviving allies an attack boost of 10%. This is something that Gerard got from Leon. Actually, Leon stole this because there's no Leon in JP. And you can see here, Imperial Assault was being used for farming, and we get 10% increase in damage, allowing some waves to be cleared if, well, that couldn't be cleared. Like, let's say that you are having a difficulty clearing the first wave because of some inconsistency, you bring Leon and he fixes the problem. Now you can also bring Gerard, you can use them together as well just fine. Although Leon is still better since he has Warcry that buffs slash and some damage to the party, while Gerard doesn't have access to this. Now, the last one is called Weak Tension that gives him 15% at all times and 10% more when attacking a weak target. In the end, what we have here is 25% at all times, then 35% on turn 1, and 45% on turn 1 when attacking a weak target, or just 35% when not attacking a weak target. That's plenty of damage boosts here. Then for skills we have some Flash. This one is very low. We have 2 characters that have access to this, and they are Emperor. Global X Emperor have this with his first skill as well. It's just D power, 10 modifiers, Slash and Sun, double element, very easy to use, and he gets even more damage when he attacks weak targets. And then we also have Christmas Rupina. Then also have this, and she can keep using it because she recovers 1 BP by every wave, something that Gerard cannot. But it's a very good attack to have nonetheless. The second one is Steel Blade Light. This one is a 10 BP skill that deals Slash and Sun, triple S damage, and 69 modifier. Just because of this is already powerful enough. Most skills that cost 10 BP and do triple S damage will do around 60 modifier only. Now we have very high damage with double elements, but there is one thing here, Delay. Delay is actually good on this skill because it has 2 additional elements. It will give him a taunt stance, meaning that after he uses, the enemy will try to attack him further. Well, I don't really like this because his endurance and we were not so high, but this was made on purpose. And then he will heal all surviving allies HP by small effect. Small effect should be around 700. Steel Blade Light was a skill I was saying when I was talking about Mariah. This skill here is amazing. There are 2 other styles in the game that also have this. That being Leon that we just discussed it. He got this with his Global X style. Steel Blade Light here, pretty good. And like I say, they don't use LP to heal the party, and by using Nawal's daughter, or even now we have Mariah, we can use this every 3 turns, depending on the strategy. If it's super defensive, it allows you to just recover HP to full or close to full and keep dealing damage. So Gerard is a very good option for those that miss it out on Leon or Mirza, other character we just talked about as well. So you don't need 3 Steel Blade Light users. This is overkill. But if you want, it works. You will be able to heal every single turn, you know, because they have a 3-turn rotation. But only against enemies that are weak to Slash and Sun, this will work super well. Either way, you're just using it for the healing instead of the damage. But it's a very good kit and kind of helps him use the 3rd skill, because he also has a 3rd skill called Galactic Rift. This is a Sun spell instead of skill that will use his intelligence instead of the SDR. Triple S damage. In JP was only double S damage. We don't know the real modifier here if it's high or not, but triple S AoE damage, it's just insane. So I believe they did this because of Leon, because Leon has something very special about him, and that is this attack called Imperial Glory. Well, Imperial Glory opens with an E spell that is pretty weak because of his intelligence being very weak, but it buffs everyone's all status by 30%, and then he uses Imperial's Word. But Imperial's Word is buffed before he uses it, so the damage is insane. I was getting close to 70,000 when farming against enemies weak to Sun by using Leon. I believe that they compared the damage of Gerard with Leon, and they said, well, I don't think this damage is beating Leon, so let's improve this to triple S and people will want to summon. And there's one thing that is just the same with both. They have Steel Blade Light that has delay, so that means that if someone else attacks on the first wave and kill, they would never try to interfere, allowing them to use their nuke attacks on wave number 2. So that's exactly what Gerard does. But Gerard has a problem. His agility is not so high, only 75%. You can fix this by the use of Magia Fight Formation, a new formation that we just got in the game. And then you place your fast attacker, needs to be someone else in the back, like in Urpina, for example, and she will kill the first wave, and then Gerard will try to kill the second wave. By being on the front, he will get an increased turn order, and then he will probably kill the second wave. If you only have 2 waves, this will allow you to just bring 2 characters to farm the stage and bring 3 trainees, as an example. So, he works very similarly to Leon, but also brings the same problem. After he uses his nuke, he cannot use anything else, because he will not have enough BP to use some flash, unless someone gives him 1 BP. What you will be able to do later is to amplify Light Ball, so that it becomes Light Ball Plus. It will be 3 BP instead of 4, and then you can keep using. It's good because he's already a mage when he uses Galactic Rift, so he just keeps using attacks based on intelligence. Besides that, there's nothing so good to inherit. He has Mirage Blade that can be amplified to Mirage Blade Plus on this style here, but he does not have plus 3 VP, so he cannot use this twice in a row. So I don't really think it's good to be used with him anyway. So this Gerard is pretty good. If you don't have the other Steel Blade Light users, this is your chance to get one character that will help you in hard challenges. And because he is pretty similar to Mirza, he will be placed similarly too, either on the end of the triple S tier or on the start, very top of the double S tier. I'm gearing more towards being close to Mirza, now being the last of the triple S tier characters, because Steel Blade Light is just so good, and he will also be always good for farming because of Imperial Salt. Even if he gets power creep, he will just help out with this passive. So Gerard is good. Just think about if you want him, if you already have Leon or not. Now let's talk about Rouge. Rouge is not your standard mage. I have to explain why. First of all, we have 5 different versions of him. This one was from Story, this S1 can be found in Story as well, this one is Platinum, and the first limited was all for this day. Hold Back Hell is the current one, and it just loses on STR and Dexterity, and this can be a problem, but I will explain this later. Hold Back Hell has very high agility, 99%, sadly does not have bonuses. The bonus goes for Intelligence and Will. Intelligence is 108, that's pretty high already, and Will 80% like most mages. His endurance is not so bad for a mage, at least. Well, Love and Charisma are on average, and there is a usage for this that I'll explain later. Having very bad STR and Dexterity means that his normal attack will just fails almost all the time. unless the enemy have very low evasion, and this will not help him in at least one setup, but I'll explain more. First of all, his abilities are very strong. We have Overflowing Shadow on the start of a turn, and for 5 turns, he'll get an extreme boost to shadow damage that will last for 1 turn. So that means that in 5 turns, he will get this 30% increase. And even if it just changes waves and everything, he will just keep getting this at least 5 times. Then the second one is called Shade M4, that gives him 20% increase in damage at all times. All of his attacks are shadows, so this means that it's always active. Then we have Weak Tension that gives him 15% at all times and 10% further when attacking a weak target. Let's see how much we have here. We actually have 75% if everything works. But you need to attack a weak target, and I must say that you will be using Rouge just for enemies that are weak to shadow. That is his main gameplay. But there are some spells that can do cold or even pierce that will help you, but you need inheritance. Okay, and then from turn 6 and beyond, he loses a lot of his power, but turn 6, if you were using him for raids, usually you would die on turn 4 or turn 3 even. And for farming, you usually finish things in 3 turns. But if you are using Rouge for boss fights, he just loses 30% after 5 turns. Okay, so for spells, we have Dark Ball. This one is a deep power AoE attack shadow damage that has a chance to debuff Will. Well, we just got a version of Evelyn that can do the same thing with a lower power but very similar for 3 BP. This means that he's not the best one for this. He also does not self-buff intelligence, that meaning that the chance that he has on turn 1 is the same as the other turns unless you are bringing buffers. So it's just useful, but not the best of this kind. Then the second spell is called the Gain Magic for 5 BP. He would just buff himself for shadow damage, and that is between 40% on rank 1 and 45% on rank 99. But you will need to level this up manually on Seeker's Path, for example. When you use this, you get 3 BP back. And this is nice because I have to explain. Use 5, get 3, and the next turn you get 3 more, meaning that on turn 2 you have 11. 11 is what you need to do some stuff with Rouge. I wish we could have at least 12 so you could use this even better, but still, with 11 BP, you can just use Quark Collapse on turn 2, but that is only on manual. If you're not using manual, you just use Quark Collapse on turn 1. And this attack is very strong. 10 BP, 8 power, 28 double hits. This is essentially double crush, but more shadow damage. It's just triple S damage right from the bat. There is only one thing that we need to consider. We do have some other mages that can do much more damage with things like scatter explosions and the likes, but the damage here will be super good because of the passives that we already have plenty of. But now let's say on Auto, you want to go with Quark Collapse. What he does after that? Well, he skips 1 turn and then use Dark Ball. So opening with a single target attack and then doing an AoE is not exactly the best thing. So you need to go for inheritance to look for him. But there are plenty of amplified attacks in the future that will just change something for him. First of all, we have Shadow Chains if you want to keep using single target. Right now it's the only way for him to do that. But in the future, he will be able to just amplify Wrecking, and it will be doing B damage with 3 BP only. This will be his best single target cycle. But you can also just go for Drain Energy and use Drain Energy 3 times in a row. This will be good for raids, and Drain Energy will also be amplifiable. Vermilion Sands is already amplifiable, but it's not exactly that good since you can only use this on turn 2 anyway. But the damage will be very good if you can wait 1 turn. There is also a future amplifier of Dark Wash. This one is reaching triple S power in JP. It's pretty recent. And Energy Storm is also very powerful, but you can only use that on 2 turns, like turn 1 and 3, or turn 2 and turn 3. So in the end, he doesn't have such perfect cycles. Right now, the way that he operates is more about nuking, especially on the start or in boss fights. If you just know what you're doing by using Gain Magic, then Quark Collapse, then normal attack, and then Quark Collapse again. It's the way that he works. So Rouge is more about damage. He does have some competition against UDX Death number 2 and Saruin, but they work different. They have passives that will stack, while Rouge is just very high damage from start, and even higher if you go for Gain Magic. Just then Quark Collapse, normal attack, and Quark Collapse again. He will get very good damage, and if you can finish the fight in 5 turns, you got the max value of Rouge. That's why he will be receiving a double S grade, but he's a little easier to skip because power creep can affect him easier than some other units. Now we'll be talking about Hector. We have 4 different styles of him. The first one is given out for free, but the 3 other ones are limited. The first one was a New Year one, this one is the school version, and the Leave It to Mercs is the last one that we can summon for. Well, we have very high STR, the highest one in the game. He beats even Gustav and Gustave by 2%. Then his endurance is not the highest one, as you can see here, but pretty close. Dexterity the highest one, agility 90% the highest one as well. Intelligence a little higher, but he's not exactly at the buffer. And will is not bad for a character like him. And love and charisma pretty bad. So, his arrows go for double on agility and 1 for STR. You need to get someone else for double STR like this school version if you want. So, the first passive, Strengthened Energy, gives him 10% in damage and then plus 2 BP. That's the same as Gerard. Then we have Breath of Invigoration. Every time that he attacks, he recovers HP by around 150 and also 1 BP. This is nice because of the way that he works, especially for raids. And then for the 6, we get here 30% decrease in damage at all times. So he's pretty stable, 40% at all times. Starts with 12 BP. Heal every time he attacks and gets 1 BP back. For skills we have Spinning Slash. This one is exactly a skill that we saw before. And who? Let's talk about this. We saw this before in Leonard. And the Spinning Slash is very strong for the coast. It's 4 BP, 24. He doesn't have a way to self-buff, so he would just have to keep attacking with this. B power is good enough, and because he gets BP back every time he attacks, he can just cycle this forever. The second one is Swift Slicer. This one is actually an AoE attack with D power 12 modifier that is fast. So being fast is cool and everything, but we just got another character that is actually better on this. That is Torpid. Those that got Torpid, they have a D power attack with 6 BP cost as well, but has an added value of buffing everyone's STR. So this attack is not prime and it's just outdated as soon as it got released. But because of getting 1 BP back, he can use this more times in a row. Just won't help the party. And then the last one is Fighter Special. For 12 BP, he gets a double S power attack with 49 modifier only. Yeah, it's pretty weak attack because it has a different effect. So the special effect gives him guard up very large by 5 turns. Very large means 50% decreasing damage for 5 turns. So if you want to use him on raids, he would just use the guard up, and he has very high agility, meaning that he will attack before being attacked, deal average damage, and then just keep trying to do more damage with Spinning Slash, the self buffs. So the more turns you are attacking, the bigger the damage. It's pretty good, it works, but some people will just want to nuke turn 1 and turn 2 and die on turn 3. Because it's just faster. He will survive some nukes, meaning that he will just make your raids slower. If you want that, it's not a problem, but it will increase your score most of the time. And now, what we can do with him is just go for full AoE cycle, just increase Fighter Special if you want, keep using AoE till you run out of PP, just increase the Spinning Slash to 5 if you want to. You can also go for a stronger turn 1 damage if you want by Inheritance of Vandalize. This one has 11 BP cost, so it works, but you need to have this version of him as well. The other way is to wait. In the future, he will get an Amplify from String Blade that will become triple S with 9 BP cost, allowing him to go for turn 1 and turn 3, and that's pretty good. But in the end, Hector faces a lot of competition against slash damage dealers that we have and we will get in the future. There's nothing so special about him, and power creep will also affect him a lot. So right now, he's just receiving a double S grade because it's still a better character than a lot in the past, but will not stay like that, and I must say that he's the less interesting one from this banner. And now it's finally time to talk about Monika. We have plenty of different styles for Monika in the game. The first one is not limited, the same for the S version, but all the other ones are limited. The Christmas, the Award, the Anniversary, the Global X, and now, once again for the word Monika, that beats the other ones in almost every aspect. This Monika is a damage dealer, an evasion tank, a debuffer, and it works on almost all content in the game. Well, for starts, we have 110% on dexterity and plus 14. This is already the highest dexterity we can achieve in the game. We have 93% intelligence, that's super high for a character that's not a mage, with plus 14 as well. Her agility is very good for a character that's not based on this. Endurance is average, but will being a little higher makes sense, since she debuffs intelligence, she will be used against enemies that do magical spells. Now, for abilities, we have on the start of a round, and every round she will get a 10% buff to her dexterity and intelligence, and enter herself an evasion stance that lasts for 1 turn, negating all types of damage and status ailments. We have seen this before with a character like the first limited version of Madeline, but also with Xeno, Marquis no more. I place this Xeno on the front of a Tiger Shark formation, and the enemies will attack him more often, and he evades the attacks, and then I try to kill them in one wave. So when I'm running Spiral Corridor, I just reduce the damage that I received by doing this. It's a pretty viable strategy, and if you missed it out on the Xeno, you can now use this Monika instead. Although she does not have double elements, she's just focused on Pierce, she will also debuff intelligence, will be on many auto setups starting from here. Okay, the second passive, Raging Spirit 2, buffs her dexterity and intelligence by 20% every time that she attacks. So this means that she also works well on boss fights, because she just keeps increasing the damage and a chance to debuff and a chance to instant kill. So instant kill works well on tower, and debuff works well on boss fights. Then we have Fired Up 6. This increases damage by 30% at all times. She's well-rounded and has plenty of different effects that just sync together to get a lot of value. Let's start from the third skill. Floral Flap uses 10 BP and do an A-power AoE attack that will have a chance to debuff intelligence by 15%. This is insanely good because, well, as damage is already good, and then the added effect of doing intelligence debuff, we don't have many characters that can do nuke attacks while also debuffing, and especially because her cycle works so well with the skill number 1, called Blurry Needles, that uses 3 BP, and DOE power 8 modifier, that's not so strong, but doesn't matter since she just keeps buffing herself, and will also have a chance to debuff intelligence. 93%, like I said, is almost mage level, so saves chance, but will hardly miss out unless you are on a very high level of tower. So you go with a nuke attack, keep doing the same thing, cycling between intelligence debuff. The more you attack, the more damage you do, and the more chances you have to never miss out. Then the second skill is called 100 Lotus. For 7 BP we have a C power attack, 18 modifier that hits twice, and twice with a chance to instant kill. Remember that she has very high intelligence? Well, yeah, she will kill most enemies unless they have resistance. And you can kill 2 enemies. The second one will have a higher chance since she was already buffed by her Raging Spirit too. But even if you don't instant kill them, the damage is already good enough. It will do a lot for 7 BP. So we have all here. We have single target attack, we have AoE with good cycle. Sadly, she cannot use 100 Lotus twice in a row. I wish they would change this for her, but they didn't. So the only style that can do this twice in a row is this version of Monika that doesn't have the highest intelligence possible. It will work so well on Conquest, but also Conquest hardly have any node that can be instant killed with all enemies, so this doesn't help anyway. There's also this Eulogy attack that has medium chance to instant kill that you can import into this version of Monika, but only on turn 2, but the chance is pretty high and the damage will be very good. This version of Monika also helps because this one has double arrows for dexterity, so if you have it, it's more chance for you to use this character. Now, as for other inheritances, we can go with this award version that has Firecracker, that is both Pierce and Heat if you want. But then you have to use a formation where you decreases the attack order or agility so that we don't attack on turn 1. The power is pretty similar, but it just adds heat damage too. Besides this, we can just inherit an attack like Cutting Lunge or some other to keep single target attacks if you want. like this double slash. We go with 7 BP and then keep using double slash if you want, because it also adds slash damage. Besides this, she's more used for debuff. There is also another possible strategy that you can inherit from her Global X style. This attack called Dazzling Ballet, and you get this Dazzling Ballet on turn 1, and then she will just have a chance to counter enemies that attack her. And it's evasion counter stance, meaning that she also does not take damage. You can even just skip turn 1 if you want and then use this on turn 2, so you have 2 evasion stances. And every time that she counters, she will just self-buff. Remember, she can self-buff intelligence and dexterity. I can see this being useful for some random tower stages and some possible challenges as well. So just adds even more value if you have that style. Monika is a meta character. She is the best intelligence buffer right now. She does have a competition with a recent character that was Zosma. Zosma has Mirage Step that is 4 BP but will be amplifiable in the future to reduce to 3, and he has the same thing. He buffs his STR and intelligence. But remember when I said that Monika is the best physical one? Look on the dexterity of this guy. Even though he takes part of his STR, he will never reach as much accuracy as Monika. If you are facing very hard challenges on tower, for example, Zosma may miss, while Monika will hardly ever, and she just keeps increasing her accuracy too, because dexterity is her main accuracy. Although Zosma buffs STR and STR is also used for accuracy, it's only 25%, while Monika takes the whole value out of this. So Monika is the best character, but they do different damage. This one is Pierce, the other one is Slash. Although they compete, you can still use them together or in different scenarios if you want. Another character people can use is Summer Acelus. She doesn't have as much intelligence, but it's not bad, and she inherits from this version, Mirage Step 2. This one is working. Right now in the game it still works, but with hard content coming up, she would not be so good anymore. This Monika is just so good that I must say that she would be one of the highest double S tiers in the game, and a character that will be seen in many different compositions from now on. Now back to the banner image. Is this worth summoning for? In my opinion, yes. It will receive a gold award because there are at least 3 characters that will be meta for most people. I must say that Monika will work for everyone, whereas Mariah is good for hardcore players, Gerard is good for everyone, Rouge may have some problems with some of his cycles, but he's also super powerful for farming, even boss fights, whereas only Hector is just someone that will not have an impact in the long term. So, if you have gens, by all means, this is a very good banner for you, especially if you are missing the things I just said. And once again, I need to say this banner does not have off banners, so you don't even need to go for a pity. If you go here and summon, every time that you get a double S drop, it will be at least one of them. And if you get the characters that you care the most, you can even stop midway and not pity the last ones. And that's why the value here just increases. That and that each one of these styles are totally different and offer different strategies to your party. With that said, I'll be summoning this on release, and I hope this video helped you decide. What's your opinions? Please say here in the comment section. I hope to see you soon in the next video or the next live stream.